Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today's project is an ultralight reel from the 70s. It's the Berkley 440. It's a ball bearing ultralight reel. This one's running nicely, and we're just going to take it apart to show you how it's made, and I'm going to take it fishing when we're done with the servicing of that reel. So it's a mid-1970s, an interesting one. I did a short on this a little while ago. It says inspected and assembled in the USA, made from parts made in Japan. So interesting. It tells you that's the time when the manufacturers are starting to offshore the production of a lot of their fishing reels, and they wanted to assure their buying public that the same quality and manufacture was in those reels. So the Berkley 440, I'm going to start by taking the exterior pieces and parts off. We'll do a typical take apart. We'll show you how the reel is made, and then we'll put it back together again. So this has an interchangeable handle. I'm not sure if this screw over here is holding the main gear in or not. I'll take it out just for fun, and you'll see that you can swap those if you would like to. All right, there's 3 side plate screws here, and while I'm taking the pieces and parts off, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you like these types of videos. And if you do subscribe, please hit that notification button. That way you'll see the reels that I'm working on. And I work on all kinds of reels, whatever comes into my shop. You're kind of looking over my shoulder here. And I get all kinds of reels. Some of them I preview, some of them I don't. And they're freshwater, saltwater, they're low profile, they're spin cast, they're trolling reels, they're everything that shows up. If I haven't done a video on it, I try to do a video on it. Of course, now we're in a very busy part of the season as everybody's getting ready for the upcoming runs and the like. And sometimes I just don't have the time to do as many videos as I would like. Well, I always lay the screws out on my desk to make sure that the screws are the same size. And here's an example of where they're not. That short screw came from the bottom hole. And so when you go to reinstall, you need to make sure that it goes back there. Otherwise, you could damage the reel or the screw or both. Manufacturers sometimes change the design. In this case, that axle shaft is going to seat down here, and the long screw would interfere with that. So they made a shorter screw on the case. Let's go ahead and take this off then. And we have an anti-reverse click here. Probably seats to the outside. It does. Here's the teeth for that anti-reverse click. We're going to remove the main gear, and surprisingly, this is running very well, but it's a very dry reel. There's not much at all going on in this reel. Simple makes better. We have a bushing in the side case here. We have a main gear that serves as the main gear and also serves as the click ratchet for the anti-reverse dog to hold. On top we have a drive. I'm just going to wipe that down here, get the old grease off of that. We have a drive up top here. That drive is going to move the oscillation gear underneath here. It's hiding behind the axle shaft at the moment, but that's what makes the axle shaft go up and down, so that when you spool your line, you notice that the crosswind block is moving. That's moving the shaft up and down there so that the line spools evenly as you continue through your crank. All right, we're going to take that crosswind block screw out. That is going to enable me to remove that axle shaft. The axle shaft is very much like a Mitchell axle shaft to kind of remove the spool quickly, but the axle shaft has a pivot below, and it has these fanned prongs up above which are going to grab the bottom of the spool. And when you push that button down, you're compressing the wings on that, enabling you to lift that spool off. If you can, you always want to remove that axle shaft because a lot of grease dries on there or accumulates on there, and it slows the reel down. Now, there wasn't a lot of evidence of poor performance in this reel. Most of the time you get that kind of evidence, it's usually because there's a lack of fresh grease. Everything's all dried up and the like. Well, in this case, the opposite is true. There's plenty of dry, but there's not a lot of grease accumulated. This is the crosswind block. when you take the crosswind block off, notice there's a little copper ring right there that belongs on that post. If you're looking on your desk and you're finding a little cotton or copper ring there, then now you know where it goes, right? There's a rotor nut here that appears to be 14 millimeter. Let's give it a try. We're going to do it in the... All right, so I used a deep socket because you have a lip on this reel and you can't get in there with a traditional wrench. It's not going to work. So you're going to need a socket to take that off. And this one comes off in your traditional counterclockwise manner. Watch this little set here underneath is a spring. That's your spring load for your bail trip, and if you leave that off, there's a chance you can shoot that. Now, if you are in a if you're servicing the reel and you need to remove that spring, go ahead and do that. Underneath, we'll show you what's... Oh, there you go. That's probably why the customer brought this in, even though it was running pretty nice. We've got a bird's nest under here. We've got a lot of old line that accumulated around the bottom of this, and I guess that's probably why he said that it just wasn't working right. So even though I took a quick look at all of the pieces and the parts, they were very clean and all, they were telling me it just wasn't running right, and now I guess we know why. It probably got snarled in there. This should have the pinion gear. You can pull that out, the pinion shaft, and there's a bearing in here. Now, if you just wanted to take the quick approach here, you can just throw some oil on there as long as it's working, but because this is a how-to video, we're going to show you how to take it all apart. There's 3 screws involved. This is a good place to tell you, take pictures along the way. If you are unfamiliar with the reel, I just was working on one. I was working on a Tsunami, and I didn't have a clue about the reel. I made sure that I took a video. Now, you don't have to do videos. I did a video because I wanted to post it to our channel here. But I did make sure that there was a lot of pictures along the way, just in case, well, my memory doesn't serve me well. I have pictures to do that. Notice that this is a D-shaped ring. It's not a complete circle. This one should be easy enough to put back in correctly, but a picture there helps. And you can see that there's a bump out here where that's going to go against. So those are the things you want to notice. Well, I'm going to put that back in because it's usually easier to put it back in and push the bearing out. There's 2 sides to this bearing now. There's a bearing that has a shield on it, and there's an open side of that bearing. I'm going to flush this one. There's a little bit of build up there, so I'm going to use penetrating oil just to wipe off some of the hardened grease there. I'm going to spin it. Now, if you have a very severely impacted bearing, you have 2 options. You can try cleaning it, or you can replace it. If you try cleaning it, some folks were asking me, what's the best way to do that? Well, they actually make a little tool that'll force the oils in that through it. This one just was clean enough, but I just wanted to demonstrate there. The other thing to do is sit this in a cup of rubbing alcohol. That'll dissolve it, and then blow it dry, either with compressed air, or you can even use like a hair dryer. Just put it on low heat or cool setting. Blow out the alcohol, it'll evaporate. You'll be back to your bearings, and then you can oil that bearing. And it's important when you put this bearing back, you want to put those open side down, because if water is coming in from the top, you don't want to have that water trap dirt in that open bearing situation. All right, I'm going to take a hard brush and a paper towel. I'm going to wipe down the channels of this pinion gear. You'll see as I pull it through, the old grease is hitting the paper towel and not transferring back up to the next slot. When that's clean, inspect all the teeth, make sure that they're uniform, that there's not a chip or something bent out of shape. And once you're satisfied that the pinion gear is good, go ahead and get some grease. Now, I don't care which fishing reel grease you use, but I do recommend you use fishing reel grease. I use Penn Precision reel grease, and not partial to one or the other, but this one comes in a 1-pound tub, and I use a lot of grease, so I kind of like the convenience of not having to keep ordering and keep opening the grease. All right, got a good amount of grease in. I'm using a painter's brush. The hairs generally stay on there. Now I'm going to take that bearing with the open side down and put that on the shaft, and then we're going to go ahead and reinstall. While I'm doing that, if you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe you're working on one and you've hit a jam up or something, maybe you just can't quite figure something out there, if you leave it in the comments section, I do try to respond to those questions. Now, most of the time it's early mornings before I get to the shop, but if you have one and you have some patience, I will try to help you. And if I don't know the answer to your question, I'll try and point you in the right direction. Okay, I'm going to put that collar back on. I just want to check that collar because I want to make sure that, nope, that's symmetrical. Sometimes those collars have an indented section for the flatheads. This one I didn't think did, but I wanted to make sure. And then we can put those 3 small screws in there as the tie down. So that's holding the bearing in place. That way the bearing doesn't pull out with your rotor when you attach the rotor. I guess these must be steel screws because they're sticking to my magnetic tip. Makes it easier for me, but if you're using the reel in salt water, well, steel and salt water don't play nice together, so sometimes the stainless steel screws are better for that situation. This is an ultralight. Chances are you're not using that for big game saltwater fish, but who knows, with braid these days, people do all kinds of crazy things. All right, that's back together now. And with that back together, we can go ahead and put this back on. Remember this little collar here that's holding that spring in. And then when you go to set this, it has to be inside these 2 channels here. There's kind of a shoulder on each side where this fits between. I'll just take our rotor nut now. We'll put that in. That goes in a traditional clockwise manner now, the old righty-tighty. And I like to start these by hand because I want to make sure that the nut is going on properly and not cross-stripping. That little punctuation mark there just came out. This is an example where it's just not seating right. So take your time, use your patience. You will get it, but don't force anything. For some reason this thing just wants to keep on moving. Okay, I think we got it now. Tighten it down as much by hand as you can, and then use your ratchet for that last little bit. Give it a spin here, make sure that it spins nice and easy. That way you know that you've got it set properly. And then let's come on back and it's a quick reinstall here. The case is very clean. If it needed any additional cleaning, go ahead and use a penetrating oil. Kind of spray it around, make sure that the old grease is mopped up. Use a paper towel. Use some cotton swabs. Get some of the grease off the sides. And just have a little bit here. I'll go get that off. And then you're ready to reinstall. Okay, we know that we had the main gear, which is doing an awful lot. You have main gear, you have the gear that's going to drive the crosswind gear, you have the click ratchet all in one. That's simplicity of design. I like that. Put a little grease onto the back of the oscillation gear. We're going to put grease into the teeth, and while I'm doing that, I'm checking these teeth. I want to make sure that these are not broken, because if it is, your axle shaft won't go up and down. And we're going to put grease on the face because that's where your crosswind block is going to ride. All right, once you've greased up your crosswind block, it's time to put the main gear and the rest of the assembly in. Notice on this little drive gear for the back, there's a flat side and there's a ridge side. That flat side acts as a washer against the case, so that goes in first, just like that. Next up then, you're going to take your crosswind block, put that on the shaft. There's 2 sides to that crosswind block. There's a high and a low side. Notice the hump. You want to make sure that that's how it comes out. Take your main gear now. Just install that. That should be a nice easy one. You can give it a ride if you want, but let's put that crosswind axle shaft in first. So we're going to just put a little bit of grease on the axle shaft. We're going to slide the axle shaft through the pinion gear, bring it down and merge it into that crosswind block. And then make sure when you come down on the crosswind block that you align the hole in the crosswind block with the hole in the axle shaft, just like that. Then go ahead and grab your small screw that holds that together and tie that together. And then all we have to do really is set that other side case. Now this one I believe is going to hold the main gear in on this side, so we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to put that screw here. That should hold it all in place, and at this point if you want to give it a test, go ahead and give it a test. Now you know your anti-reverse is not working at this point. That's okay. This is your anti-reverse. Now this is all the way over on the wrong side here. It's got to come all the way over here. So that's a key when you're loading the case. Pull it all the way down and go to set the case. Sometimes you want to use a little assist here, maybe a screwdriver or something. I'm going to use a little pick to kind of hold that like that as I go to load the case on now. What I'm trying to do is get it under the switch here. Now let's give it a ride. All right, now you got it. And now when you put it in the off position, you load it. So that's what you have to do. You have to pull it all the way to the side there. If you're having trouble loading that, that's exactly what you do. You pull this all the way over to the side. I used a little bit of an assist there. If you're good about it, you may not need that. All right, we have 3 screws remaining here. That short one we noted goes to the low side. And then we have the 2 longer ones go up top. So a simple reel in design, a reel that has that main gear serve the 3 purposes. It drives the oscillation gear, it drives the main pinion, and it also serves as the backside for the anti-reverse click ratchet. So nice design, limited parts. So if it has limited parts, well, chances are it's going to last a while. You also saw this one has a single ball bearing in it, so it should be smooth operation on the top side, and it should last a whole lot long. Again, this is similar to your Mitchell spool. If you remove the top of this, you can push your main piece through. There's a drag washer on the bottom of this stem. You just want to check to make sure that it's firm. That one's fine. And then this one also has some drag washers up top in the traditional nested sense. So let's go ahead and pull these. I guess we can leave that out for a moment. And again, most of the real service that you're going to do is inspection. You want to make sure that the pieces and parts are in good condition and that they're replaced if there's something that needs to be replaced in them. There's a spring clip sitting in a slot here. Just be careful with it. The operative words there is spring and clip. And we have one big thick washer that is your drag washer here, about 1/8 or 1/16 thick. It's a hard, it's a felt washer. I oil felt washers. Felt washers are very absorbent. You just need to keep them oiled and fresh and you'll be fine. I'm going to go ahead and put the stem back on before I put the retention washer in. We'll go ahead and seat the spring clip back into that groove. And most of the time you can do this with some hand strength. Alright, with that little clip installed, we can just put the store adjuster back on. Tighten it down. We need a handle. Let's grab our handle. Put that back on. Put a drop of oil on the line roller and on the seams of where the bail arms meet the assembly. You do not need to remove the bail unless the bail is not working. All right, just put that back on. We'll tighten that down all the way here. Make sure that the jag is working. It is, and then I like to back it off. All right, we're in the off mode here. We're going to go to the on mode. Make sure our bail is working. It is nicely, and that's it. So that's how you take apart, you service, and you reinstall all of the pieces on the Berkley 440 ultralight freshwater fishing reel. Beautiful little reel. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it. Again, if you like these types of videos, please subscribe and hit the notification button. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for all it is that you've been doing and the service that you provide all of us during the pandemic. Your efforts truly are appreciated. To everybody, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.